Then I will call the meeting to order. The next item is the fiscal year 2021 budget overview. Town accountant. Regina?
Is it showtime? Well, I guess I have the printout of what Ed has given me in terms of questions for the expense report.
Okay.
I believe Ed is going to answer most of these questions. So Ed, page 2, fire trucks.
Sure. If you look at page 2 with that question of the fire truck maintenance, right above is fire department expenses. And over the last couple of years, Chief Workman has been trying to build a history of the fire truck maintenance, so it can be actually broken out from the fire department expenses. But the expense of the fire truck maintenance is overseen by fire department expenses. So those two line items together would be budgeted for the $26,100. And it would be similar down below where there's ambulance EMS expenses of $40,000, and there's ambulance maintenance without an original budget that's got $27.81 in it right now. He's trying to do the same thing with that, but that is also would be covered by the account immediately above it, the ambulance EMS expenses.
Okay.
Hampshire regional debt, Ed?
Hampshire regional debt. I can't remember if it was the annual town meeting. I think it was the annual meeting, not the special, that approved. I think it was like 50. I'd have to go back and look, but I think it was like $55,000 for debt for the town of Southampton to go towards the upgrade of the Hampshire Regional School HVAC system. It was our portion of the 5 towns to fund that capital project.
I have a question, Ed. Since it was 55, I think it was 55,000 at the annual. So why doesn't that line then show 55,000? Because I thought that was our portion was 55,000.
So it's paid in installments, and we still need to borrow the money.
Okay.
Yeah.
So eventually it'll end up being 55,000 or in that part.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ed, prior year encumbered expenses?
And the prior year encumbered expenses, the end of every fiscal year, the departments would have to send to the town accountant a list of any funds which were encumbered but not invoiced as of yet, or contracted as of invoiced yet. The town accountant would then develop a list of encumbrances and would develop that expense line, prior year encumbered expenses line item to go into the new fiscal year to cover those expenses from the prior fiscal year.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm confused. So these prior years, so are they actually expenses from 2020?
Correct, exactly, and that's why they're labeled this way.
Okay, thank you.
And then Ed again, school lunches, Title I and school REAP grant.
Sorry. Yeah, those would be revolving funds and grants. So as the expenses would come in and then revenues would go against the ones that are revolving funds, the school lunch, the Title I and the school REAP grant are grants. 95% of the grants that we receive are reimbursable. So we expend the money, then we have to file for reimbursement for that money and then receive the reimbursement.
So this amount will be on there till the end of the fiscal year?
But it will be
No,
offset by
you will,
revenue.
right. You will see it change as, you know, expenses are made and revenues come in, or as expenses against the grants come in and reimbursements are filed.
That's for all grants, Ed? All grants, we basically front load our money, we use our money to pay the expenses, and then we have to ask for reimbursement?
Probably about 95% of them are reimbursable. I mean, there are a few which are not, but most of them are. So that's why you'll see them noted as negatives.
And on the school lunch, you know, I understand that's school lunch, but it's a fee. So is this the parents paying for the children's lunches, meals at the schools?
What's that?
What the $51,000 for the school lunch? What is that? You said that it's a revolving fund. So how does that work?
So that would be as expenses go out, they would go into that account, and then as the revenues come in, they would also be added to that account. So that would reduce, basically that amount in the negative would shrink or be smaller as the revenues come in.
So we haven't collected any revenues for school lunch then since the start of the school year?
School lunch has been free since the start of the school year due to COVID.
Okay, so are we going to
No, but there will be revenues going into that through local aid.
Okay.
Any idea how much? Will it cover what, that amount?
It should. Yeah.
Okay. All right, page 6, chapter 90. Any other questions on that before we move off? Mary, you all set?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay.
That is it.
Chapter 90.
Questions?
Chapter 90 for fiscal year 18, we'll just have to go back and check it. There, my assumption would be that there was a charge into the fiscal year 18 account that probably should go to fiscal year 19.
Oh, okay. All right.
And the way those are utilized is usually from the oldest to the newest.
So how does Chapter 90 funds, how does that, how do they flow to the town? Because those are state funds. How does that work, the Chapter 90 funds?
Basically, every year we receive an acknowledgement letter of what the town is eligible for in Chapter 90 funds. And then against that, the highway superintendent would make a plan for projects or charges that fall under that: road repairs, guardrail repairs, design work for roads or bridges, items like that, and would file that with the DOT. The DOT would have to then accept that plan, and then it would sit there, and as the charges or the invoices came in against those particular projects, the highway superintendent would have to submit the Chapter 90 forms back and have them signed by both myself and the town accountant, just like when we requested those Chapter 90 funds, they have to be signed by myself and the town accountant also. And then those are the charges against those funds and those projects.
Okay. Page 7, Council on Aging. State.
Yeah, that's a reimbursable grant. So as charges are incurred against it, they're expended, and then we take those and have to ask the state for reimbursement for those costs. And the same would be true for like the FRTA grant, which we received from Franklin Regional Transit Authority for the Council on Aging van.
That's the one on page 8. Yep. Okay.
Back to that Council on Aging at the state level, Ed, how, you indicated that we
What's that?
On the Council on Aging for the state, that account
Yes.
has been red since the beginning of the fiscal year. So when does the state send us money for the expenses we've already had?
I would have to go take a look at that and see if it's done quarterly or how that's done and get back to you on it.
I believe we receive it once a year, Ed.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I think, I'm
At
pretty
the
sure.
year?
Yeah.
So
I
Jen,
thought that was it, but I wasn't positive.
Jen, is it typically at the end of the fiscal year that we'll get the dollars from the state?
I would have to look I can look when we received it last year, but I can make a note to do that and look for you,
Thank you.
get back to you.
Okay.
And we would have a contract with the state for those grants. So.
Yeah.
COVID wages. 21,000.
Whether they're COVID wages, whether they're COVID wages or expenses, basically, depending on what they are and what they were related to, they may come from the CARES Act, which we receive funding for, or they may come directly from FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. But basically, we would report those to them and ask for the reimbursement for it.
So these expenses that are currently in the system, have we asked for reimbursement at this time?
I believe we have received some reimbursement from the CARES Act from the phase 1. I'd have to double check on that. I know I actually applied for some reimbursement, but other than that, they ask for those reports periodically and reimburse us.
So the expectation is that they are fully reimbursable?
In total, yes. That is the expectation.
Okay. All right, any other questions on that? And Mary, the page 7, multiple grants, your question there?
No, that it was already addressed.
Right.
95% of it is all reimbursable, so that's why we're in the red. So I just wanted to understand that, so it's clear now.
Okay. All right, and the Council on Aging ban, it's similar to the, that's the FRTA portion.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Page 9, police, outside detail. 57,460.
Should be page 8.
I think you're right, that's page.
Yeah, it should be page 8.
Page 8. Okay.
That's an Ed
And
question.
there really wouldn't be any way of billing up front or in advance for this because you really don't know what the total hours are going to be or if it's straight time or overtime.
Oh, so there's a union contract that says, you know, like if they have to work a detail, it's a minimum of 4 hours or something like that?
So normally details
Yeah,
are a
depend-
minimum of 4 hours, yes.
Okay.
The police details are, so when the police detail, when they work, we bill the actual vendor. So if they're doing work for Verizon, we bill Verizon. The officers get paid right away on the following payroll for the detail they did. And then Verizon, Charter, whomever has to repay. This number will go significantly down as revenues are posted because we have collected a substantial amount of that.
So the vendors, those private companies, is it a quick turnaround, Jen, when you submit an invoice? Is it 2 weeks on average?
It's an average, probably about a month.
Someone have to police these?
So the police chief right now does a really good job. He's always asking me for updates on the spreadsheet I have of what has been paid, what's not paid, and he rebills any that have been outstanding for a while. So
Okay.
he's been doing really good keeping up with that.
Okay, any other questions?
The other question I had on this page was, at the annual town meeting, the revolving fund, there were spending limits that were approved for each of these categories. And I'm just trying to understand the spending limits. Like, for instance, dog control, the spending limit was $8,000. But if you look on this sheet for dog control, there's like $13,000. So I'm trying to understand the relationship between the spending limit that's approved at the annual town meeting and what's reported here as funding authority for each of these categories.
Oh, good question.
Let's if I can find them here.
Page 8.
Okay. For example, dog control is a revolving fund. So always, hopefully, if it's done right, you'll have a balance in it. You won't overexpend it. So the $13,566.87 is the balance that's in there that's carried over from the previous fiscal year and is available. Then if you slide over to the right where it says actually expended, 1882.29, that 1882.29 would be what is corresponded to the cap for the yearly expenses.
And so the caps aren't actually reported in the expense report anywhere in the system. The caps themselves are not reported or not shown.
No, they aren't. No, they are not.
So how do folks know then? How do folks know that that's the maximum they can spend on that particular item? How do they know that?
Every year when we authorize those revolving funds, we analyze them to see if they're even coming close in the past fiscal year or two. And if they are, that's when we would actually take a look and say, okay, do we need to also ask for an increase in that cap? So usually it is pretty safe for if you look at the 2 or 3 previous fiscal years of expenses. It's based on something that should have a little some extra capacity in it. It would really have to be something totally extraordinary to exceed that, and then we do keep an eye on it too. as
Throughout the year, somebody's monitoring the expenses to ensure if they're getting close to the cap, that a notification is given to the individual, who's controlling that they're getting close to their cap and they need to watch that. So we've got that internal control.
right, exactly, yeah. And it would also mean that, sometime during what I will call a normal fiscal year, if we were having a special town meeting or something, if at that point in time it looked like it was getting close, it might be one of the articles that actually goes in and adjusting that cap.
Mary, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I think we had the item, page 12, water pump station.
Sure. And there are funds that were approved directly for the water pump station and the well project. And then the water commissioners also have a capital bonding approval for projects within their purview for, whether it's water line replacement or items like that in sections of town. In this particular case, the water pump station and the well project consisted of both the capital project approval for the water pump station and the well pump, and it also encompasses the amount that they have approved for borrowing or bonding. So in this particular case, my guess is, and I'd have to go back and take a look, is that there's just some invoices that need to be transferred over to their bonding account.
Ed, I believe that this is from the SRF loan, so we have received SRF disbursements sent. They're just not posted to revenue.
Yeah.
And what's SRF funds? Whoa.
So it was a loan that, so the Water Commission is able to use the funds up to the amount that they borrowed. So, but they have to, okay. They have to invoice the Clean Water Trust, right, Ed, for the project they're doing, and then after that it's dispersed back to the town. So it
Correct.
comes,
And it's a low interest loan too.
yeah.
All right. Everybody clear on that? Next item was page 15, the stabilization. And the question as to whether or not this is the rainy day fund.
It's a portion of the rainy day fund. Yeah, I mean, the major portions of the rainy day fund are operating stabilization, capital stabilization, and then when it's been certified, also free cash would be the three major components of the rainy day fund.
So if something traumatic happened for the town, basically we have about $500,000 as our reserve right now, approximately.
Sounds about right from my memory. I'd have to, double check those, but from my memory, that sounds like a good ballpark.
Now, how in the past, our reserve fund, our rainy day fund, if you will, the combination of all of them, is that on average how much we've had, or have we had more or less? I'm just trying to understand if we've got a policy where we're trying to build up the reserves up to a certain point.
I would have to go back and to look, and I can get that information off the DOR website for you, and I can actually map it out as to, what we've had over the past, 10 years. It is volatile, it goes up and down, and but my memory is it's been pretty much around there, at least for the last 5 years.
So the historical data can be found on the DOR website?
Yeah. Yes, it can.
So do I go under the DSL? Under there, will I be able to get some information? Is that where it's located?
Should be under mass.gov DLS.
Okay, thank you.
And
We
they've got all kinds of, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. We do have a policy, right, where we put a portion of free cash towards both of these at the annual town meeting, also to
I think it's 3530 is the breakdown.
something. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, total 75%. There's X amount of percent that goes into operating stabilization, X amount of percent that goes into capital stabilization. I think it's 10% goes into OPEB.
Yeah.
And if you stick with those percentages, it leaves 25% left over for one-time purchases.
Okay, we good on that?
Yes.
All right. Then we move on to.
And those.
Yep.
And just so you know, that DLS website, you gotta dig into it a little bit because they separate things out, but they've got they got some real nice charts if you want to compare, what the average single family home tax has been over the years, what free cash has been certified to a community, over the years. You can even break it down and start looking at different sections or sectors of their budget.
Okay. I think that addresses number 2. So we move on to number 3, CARES Act funding. Town allocation of $546,287. Then the question.
Yeah. And yeah.
Go ahead.
I think somebody found them. They asked the 2 questions on the COVID-19 wages and the COVID-19 expenses. Let me just say if I can find it here.
You were looking for the negative balances for COVID-19 and wages and expenses? Ed?
What's that?
Are you looking for the balances? Negative 21.6 for COVID wages and negative 105.8 for COVID-19 expenses.
Yeah, on page 7.
Right, it's approximately negative 132. I'm sorry, 127, negative 127.
And then those invoices are charged directly to that account, or those accounts, I should say. And then we make copies of the invoices so we know what was expended by which department and for what reasons.
All right. We good there? All right, number 4, I think we've already addressed, correct?
Yep. Yes.
5, free cash balance.
Basically, what,
For me.
He said 4. You want to?
was you trying to say something?
Oh, no, sorry. I should have muted myself for a minute.
No, not you. I thought
Oh, okay.
Dina was trying to say something.
No, I have a note here of what it's for, but I thought you wanted to answer it.
I can.
Okay.
And basically at the end of every fiscal year, if there is free cash that is left that hasn't been appropriated by town meeting, that free cash will actually flow to the next year's calculation and certification of free cash.
I'm on a finance committee meeting on Zoom. It's so crazy.
That's a year-end certification.
Right.
Calendar year, not fiscal year? Is that,
What's
is that calendar year, not fiscal year?
Fiscal year.
That'd be fiscal.
So right now we're finishing up the closing of the fiscal year 20. And when that's done, part of that process for the Department of Revenue is we also will ask to have our free cash certification done. And the accountant will fill that all out, submit it to the DOR and DLS, and then we'll get a certification back for our free cash that is available to be used either in the remainder of this fiscal year or usually more commonly it is used in the following fiscal year.
So I understand correctly, just as an assumption, we have free cash at $400,000 that's certified for 2020. So we can either use that in 2021 or use it for 2022, and this $20,000 from 19 is added to that 400,000. Am I understanding correctly?
Well, basically, when you close out, say, fiscal year 20, which we're doing now, and I'd have to go back and take a look. I believe we had free cash of somewhere between $350,000 and $400,000, if I'm not mistaken. So that original amount was taken. It was utilized through our financial reserves policy, and I think it's 35%, 25%, and 10% allocated to operating capital and stabilization, and the OPEB account, which leaves, and I don't believe we did anything in excess of that. So it left 25% to be used in one-time appropriations. So that was done. So now there is $20,000 left roughly that was not appropriated. So that $20,000 will be part of the calculation that is certified here in fiscal 21, which once it's certified, you can either use it in that fiscal year, which is 21, or you could use it for expenses for fiscal year 22.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, let's see. End of year expense reports.
Yeah, that was for me. I was wondering, Regina, the system that you use when we receive the status of funds or the expense reports is basically in a PDF file. Do you have the capability, or does the system allow you to export the data into an Excel format versus a PDF?
I have seen an export function. I'm not sure. I've tried to export things for my purposes for accounts payable, and I don't like the way it looks. And I'm not sure if I'm not doing something properly. I can check and find out and get that to you if it is possible.
Yeah, that would be great because we're going to go into the budget cycles and
That's right.
looking at 2 years of expenses, and it would be great if I can have it already in Excel versus cutting and pasting a PDF file. You never get all the numbers. It's just labor intensive for nothing.
That's right. Okay.
Could you send me one too, please?
Barbara, sure.
Thank you.
I can send them to everybody if I can get it to work.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Could we also
Okay.
get that on the income side as well? I'm not sure if that's a different platform.
No, it's the same platform, so I'm pretty sure that you can export into Excel. As Regina said, it doesn't always export the way you want it to, but we can see what happens.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Export revenue.
I guess we move into the next category, which I guess is pretty much yours, Jen.
I guess so. Lucky me.
Can I
All right.
That's Mary. Yep, Mary, I see you.
Yeah, before we go to the revenue, back to the expenses, if someone can just let us know, where are the recurring service contracts for the town that we can look at the expense report and figure out, like a maintenance contract, why right now we're at 70% spent? Our assumption is because there's a service contract there. Can you let us know or run through what reoccurring service contracts are currently in place for the town?
It's quite a long list. It may be easier for me to reach out to the department heads and find out an answer to that, but we'll see what we can do for you.
Oh, I thought that maybe it was like 10 or 15 reoccurring service contracts. You guys have a lot of them? Maintenance that beginning of the year to the end of the fiscal year? Okay.
Yeah. There's a good amount of them when you start adding up the different departments.
You got a ballpark figure, like 2,000?
No, not that high. If I had to take a quick guess, I'd probably guess somewhere between, I don't know, maybe, well, I don't even want to guess. I'm going to say between 25 and 50, because you've got support contracts for our software. I think we've got 3 for SoftWrite alone in that particular avenue. I know Highway's got a number of them. I think I've got 3 for this building. So they start adding up pretty quick, but we'll get one or the other. We'll get a list together for you.
And they're all on an annual basis based on fiscal year.
There's a good amount of them that, yes, but some of them are on a calendar year, unfortunately. Most are on a fiscal year. And then some of them are 100% paid up front. Some of them are paid quarterly. Some of them, if they either require them paid up front, or they might give you a big enough discount that it entices you to pay them up front rather than quarterly.
How many
we try to look at that every year.
How many contracts are prepaid for the entire year? Do you know offhand how many those are?
I'd have to go back and take a specific look at it. I know police has a couple that are paid up front. I won't call it a service contract, but we pay our insurance lines being our property and liability and work person's comp up front, because they give us a large enough discount that it makes it enticing to do that and save some money. Say, is it retirement that is paid up?
Yeah, retirement is paid up every July 1st in full.
From all,
I don't know. I think Ed's.
So we all right? We good?
I think it went out for a minute.
yeah. Jen, what's the account that you have that's $80,000 or $90,000 that's paid up front? Is that retirement?
Oh, well, it's actually, well, you pay it all up front, but it's 900 and something thousand this year coming up. It is our retirement contribution.
Okay. I thought you also had another one.
That's paid every July 1st, and it saves a substantial amount of money if paid in one sum rather than two sums throughout the fiscal year.
Okay. Yeah, I thought you had another one that was like $90,000 that you also got paid up front, but I could be wrong. I just could have lost a decimal point there.
Yeah, that would be nice.
All right. So can we move on to the treasure collector?
Okay, so
Go ahead, Jen.
we'll start with number 1. So revenue report.
Yep.
When can you expect them? I'm not sure. I know there are some revenues posted. I'm not sure how Regina's, if she's been able to look at that yet or not. You know, she's only been here a little while. So once I enter the receipts, the accountant has to go through them, verify that, you know, I entered the right amounts, that I put it to the right account, that each deposit I entered, you know, equals the deposits that she's going to total on her turnovers from the other department heads. So she has that whole process to do once I enter, and I'm just not sure where that's at. So I don't know, Regina, have you been able to look at that yet, or?
Not at all. I'm bogged
Okay.
down in accounts payable.
Okay, so,
And I'm
yeah.
working 24 hours a week, so.
So until Regina can do that, so I can't really say when a report will go out. Someone?
Any other questions or comments?
Also, well, just to speak in general, there are vacancies in both Jen's department and in the accounting department. So there's a backlog of revenues that need to be entered, processed, verified, posted.
Okay. Tax receipts?
For tax receipts, do you want me to go overview? It says on the billing. So do you want me to go over like how they're billed?
I think it was probably, well, go ahead, Mary.
I wasn't, not the billing, it's like the collection of it, you know.
Just the collection part?
Right.
Okay, so how are we on track? So I did look today to see how we were doing, trying to somewhat compare it to last fiscal year 20 at this time. I mean, it's hard to compare because it's not the same amounts. We're going to collect more this year than we did last year. It's breaking.
It is. Our great reception.
Yeah. But I did see that, you know, for the most part, we seem to be right on track. We don't have anyone calling on, saying that there's hardships, like asking for extensions to pay taxes. I don't think the collections haven't been affected by COVID. So everything seems to be on track. As far as the projections provided at the annual town meeting to what we're actually collecting, I think that the real estate, when I looked today, it looked like the real estate was in the report. It says that, we're to collect $12,619,782.91. But really, our warrants to collect are for $12,717,000, $272.33, which is around $98,000 more. So I did see that was off. I'm not sure why. Motor vehicle is hard to say because the first commitment goes out. It will actually go out February 2nd. So that's for $793,000. We're projected to collect $995,000, I believe. However, or $987,000. But we'll have 6 other commitments throughout the year, and I can't say exactly what those would be yet. So it just depends on, who buys what vehicles and all that good stuff. So, but I think that as far as the collections go, everything's on track. Water, it's its own enterprise fund, but the collections of water usage seem to be just as, fine. Water usage fees are liened every fiscal year. So every year in October, anything not paid the prior fiscal year is liened to the homeowner's real estate bill. So those, unless the homeowner is not paying their real estate bill, if it's like in tax title, those water usage fees are always collected in a pretty timely manner. Let's see. I don't know. Any questions on that?
Jen,
No.
do we have any specific aging of the receivables?
I can't.
You were chopped up. Say it
I
again.
couldn't hear what.
Yeah. Do we have any specific? Do you have any type of aging of the tax receivables?
Yeah. So.
Is everything in the current?
Nope. So number 3, right? So for fiscal year 19, we actually still have $7,507 outstanding. For fiscal year 20, we have $44,549 outstanding. So we have sent demands out on both of those. We've sent outstanding balance letters, and we sent the first tax title letter for both of them. Due to COVID, I would lien 19. I would have liened it by the end of fiscal year 2020. Yep. But due to COVID, I didn't do that process because it just didn't, it just didn't seem like a good time, I guess. People losing jobs. And so that will be done this year now. I will be leaning fiscal year 19 and 20 together because you only have 3 years. So I have to, just move forward with it at this point. We also have tax title accounts that are already liened. So we did collect a substantial amount of that this year. We had 153,028 outstanding at the end of fiscal year 20. We're down to 130,677. We also have 3 more accounts that are in land court. So, those should hopefully be, I would hope that a couple of them would finish up this year. However, land court does take a long time and it's probably slower with COVID. So I'm not sure on that. So those are tax title accounts and, they go back. Some of them, they can go back to various years. We just had one pay off and it was back to 99. So he paid off 20-something thousand in taxes, but it was like 40,000 in interest. It's like, you know, not good. So those are our outstanding real estate taxes. I don't know. Any questions on that?
I have a question. Tax title, the tax title accounts, what does that mean, tax title? Is the houses have been foreclosed and we own the property now? Or what?
No, it just, so it means that, so like with 19 and 20 now, I'm going to send out a final letter and I'm going to let people know that, you know, this is what you owe. If you don't pay by this date, the property, it's going to be advertised that you owe this amount of money. And if you can't pay it by the date, then we're going to basically place a lien on it. So there'll be a lien placed on it at the Registry of Deeds. The town doesn't actually own it until we foreclose upon it. So it has to go through land court first. But so the lien is placed and then it moves out of the tax software and into like the treasurer side. And the interest rate becomes higher. All fees are added into that, like the advertising fee, any fee that we had to pay to lien the property. And then it can be in tax title. I mean, at that point, homeowners can choose to make a payment plan. And if they do, that's great. If not, then they, you know, eventually we'll have to go through foreclosure.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah. Okay, so next was what number? Oh, number 4, invoice processing. That's more of the accountant.
I can answer that.
Yes.
Okay.
So in my experience thus far, it looks that like invoices go to the department heads who confirm the dollar amounts and approve them and get them to me on a warrant summary sheet with the account numbers listed. And then I review and enter and process an AP warrant every 2 weeks, which then gets proofread and signed by a select person. In the case of the schools, it looks like some of the invoices go to the schools first and then to the school department and then to me. So there's a little bit of a, so in some cases that's not the case, they go directly to the school department, but in other instances they've been going to the schools first and then going to the school department and then to me.
Yeah, the school is able to print their own vendor checks. So they process really the whole warrant over there, and then it just has to be entered into our system.
So I'm guessing from invoice receipt, it's every 2 weeks. So it's a 2-week process, generally. I have gotten some stragglers that date back to October in this batch from a variety of departments. There's no pattern of stragglers with any one approver that I can see at this point.
Okay.
So it's up to the department head to ensure that they don't go outside of the budget that they've been allocated.
Yes and no. I also take a second look at it when it comes to me. There, within the accounting software, there's kind of a flag system that shows when an account is negative. In cases of like the COVID expense accounts, they are negative because that's a grant and we're expecting reimbursement. But for fixed budget lines, I will make a note of what is negative. We had a small one, an example this week for mileage reimbursement, and the account was going to go negative by about $10 or $15. So I got Ed to give me an email saying, go ahead and pay it. So I have that as my backup, that I got someone to approve it when it went negative.
Great, thank you.
All right, any other questions on that invoice processing?
And then when we know that either they're going to end up probably going negative before the end of the year, the accountant will work with the department head to see if there is funding in other line item accounts within that department that may be transferred at the end of the fiscal year and May and June to cover that. And if there is not, then we'll look at going outside that department and seeing if we can earmark funds to cover that. And if we don't think there is, then we're probably going to shut that account down. But we do our best to work with the departments to make sure, okay, if you don't have it here, you have another account that you can bring it over from. We try to keep them within their own departmental accounts first.
Do most department heads stay within their budget?
I would say yes. I mean, usually in that May-June timeframe when we can do end of the season transfers, there are a decent number of them, but I would say probably 90 to 95% of the accounts that may need transfers actually end up getting transferred from within their own department.
All right.
Moving on, payroll processing.
Okay, so payroll processing. So timesheets. So timesheets are done by the employee, signed by the employee. Then they go to the department head. The department head then verifies the hours. They generally put all of the hours onto a cover sheet. And then they sign off and approve that, yes, this person worked these regular hours, this person, did these overtime hours. And that's how any of the wages are authorized. As far as there was also pay rates being validated. So with pay rates, we would always get a PCF. In our system, we enter all pay rates. So if 1 week we're entering payroll and we see that a department's pay rate has increased, we would question it because when we get the PCFs, we change it. So if it's different, we would question that, why did it increase if there was no PCF? It usually doesn't ever happen, but that's kind of how we would know if the pay rate wasn't the correct pay rate. Also, at the end of or the beginning of the fiscal year, if there's a COLA, I do a spreadsheet to show all of those new increases, and that's approved by the select board. So that's how that would be authorized. And then those are all also entered in the system. Let's see. As far as how many employees we have, so I did a report for the last payroll, and we have on that 97 municipal employees and 92 school employees. The average was for the payroll cost was $112,152 for the municipal employees, $174,668 for the school employees. And so that fluctuates depending on how many subs have worked, how many on-call firefighters worked, or part-time police and whatnot. But that's that. I don't know. Any other questions on payroll?
Jennifer, what is the payroll processing? Is it weekly, bi-weekly, monthly?
It's bi-weekly. Yeah.
And is there a differential do they have differential rates other than overtime?
There's differential for highway, and there's differential for the school custodian. There's differential for police depending on what shift they work. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
On the number of employees, Jen, how many of them municipal? How many are full-time, 40 hours?
I'm not. I would have to get back to you on that. I didn't.
That's okay. I thought maybe that was something you already.
I would say that I would say that offhand, I mean, well, no, I would get back to you because the whole firefighters, for instance, they're all on call. So the only 40-hour person is the chief. So that's a substantial amount of those employees right there. You know, police has about probably 5 part-time. Yeah, I would have to definitely get back to you. Do you want me to get you that number?
No, that's okay. I just thought maybe
Okay.
you had that off the top of your head.
No.
Okay.
Okay, I think, looks like we've exhausted the items on the questionnaires. Any other? Let me just look at the agenda here.
And you had some questions in your email, Ken, which haven't gotten asked yet.
Right. Yeah, I gotta find the, yeah, I had a question on legal expenses, to whom and what for. I mean, that's, it's understood that the,
Yeah, we use KP Law as our town council. And just to give you some examples, used them for, town meeting expenses, and that could be for reviewing the warrant, for helping us draft an article. In this particular year under COVID, could have been for helping us with the fact that due to COVID, we had them outside and had them outside the parameters of our usual bylaws. Board of Health used some legal services for 29 Cottage Avenue to make sure that that building was taken down and safe. Let's say. There was some election issues this year with absentee ballots, mail-in voting, what have you. Let's see. The town sale of the property, which was on College Highway, which used to be the old tire dump.
all right.
And are they a retainer with a set fee for items that they're working on?
No retainer. It's I'd have to go back and look. I think it's our contracted rate is $180 an hour, but we don't pay a retainer.
Okay. Thank you.
A single lawyer?
You're welcome.
Single firm?
What's that?
A single lawyer, single firm? Or do you go to?
No, it's a law firm which has offices in Boston, has a smaller office out of Northampton, but is a very large law firm. So has the ability to give a specialized service, whether it happens to be, in labor, in contracts, in liability, in zoning. I was just looking, we had some zone enforcement issues this year that we utilize KP Law for. So just about anything that comes up, probably I would say 85% of my dealings with town council are with our main town council there. And then when it gets into specialized, like, you know, land, real estate, like I say, labor, liability, what have you, then they have that ability to give us that specialized service.
Good. Road machinery expense. I guess the only reason I mentioned that is that it's 72% expended only through the first half of the year. And road machinery expense doesn't necessarily change over the final 6 months. I know.
No, and it really depends on what breaks and when. Our fleet is getting older. We saw that both last year and so far this year. Again, it's the budget itself in this particular year was, very tight. They were reduced in some areas. So far this year, we have had a good amount of repairs in the fleet. It's one of the reasons that we are trying to, shall we say, responsibly replace some of that old equipment that is really, because of the good service it has gotten here, has outlasted its useful life. We have had our mechanics position vacant for about the last year. So we have farmed out some of the repairs that we would have in the past done in-house. They still work very hard to do what they can in-house. And this is one of the areas as the year goes on that, and wintertime is probably particularly tough on this one, but it's one of those ones that we'll keep an eye on and see, where it goes. And if the highway superintendent, Randall, can identify funds from some of his other accounts to transfer in and cover this if need be. But, sometimes it's strictly timing. You could have a piece of equipment, break on June 15th and it's needed immediately and you got to repair it. And that same piece of equipment could get into July and then break down and then it's in a new fiscal year. So.
Right. Street lighting.
And all the Eversource accounts I have to go back into and do a little research on because of the fact that we do get both net metering credits and we get cow power credits, but on those credits, even though they show up, we also get another invoice that to the company that holds the net metering credits or holds the cow power rights. And I just want to go back in and make sure that all the credits and the portions of those credits that get charged back to these accounts have either been done correctly or have been done at all. Did this, and it was a fairly complicated system, and I just have to go back and review how she did it and how she double checked that we got the credits right, and then double check how she would take those charges from the second company invoices and then get them back into the correct accounts.
Okay. So that's not a situation that you're concerned with at this point.
Let's say I'm a little bit concerned with it, but I'll define that answer after I've delved into it to figure out exactly where we are.
Okay. All right. COA we've already talked about, and I guess the only other one was the Chapman House.
Yeah, and that one's there. We have to do a journal entry on that one because there was an occasion when the original account number was given out for that project. It actually turned out to be the incorrect account number. And I think some of it ended up getting charged to Pomeroy Meadow debt. So I just have to go back in and make sure that everything was charged to the correct account there. It's not real. I know it's not overdrawn because, you know, I saw that in there and I was familiar with, because actually Jen brought it to my attention the first time we put one of the invoices through that. She let me know that, hey, by the way, this actually comes up as a different account. So it really hasn't been overexpended yet, but it needs a journal entry to straighten it out.
Okay. All right, I think that addresses all of the what we had. I would move to item 4 on the agenda, public comment. Do you have any?
Well, I have a comment. I'll wait for the public if anybody's there.
Right. Mike, any public comment from you? I know there was another name on here, but I don't see that anybody else is in attendance.
He's talking, but he's
Muted.
Are you muted, Mike?
yeah. All
I
right.
am no longer muted. My apologies. Hi.
Floor is yours.
Yeah, I think that agenda item was put there on my behalf so I could ask just a few questions. But I think I'm saturated, so I'm just going to ask one.
Okay.
If that's all right. And it's just kind of a broad process question. Throughout this expense document, there is a column for budget revisions. And I'm just curious, how does that work? How and under what authority are budget revisions made?
Probably under about 3 different ones. One is if we have an account for it, but it's got 0 funds in it, and that is a reserve account, which if was funded is at under the discretion of the finance committee. So, and it's probably a bad analogy because of the fact that even when it has been funded over the last couple of years, it's only been funded about $5,000. John Martin has told me that at one time might have been funded as high as $40,000 or $50,000, but you know, out of the blue, you know, one of the boilers blew up here. Actually needed to be replaced, and it was $20,000, and obviously it's not in our operating budget for the town hall. And if that reserve account was, you know, funded for, you know, $30,000 or $40,000, the department head, in my analogy would be me, could come to the finance committee and say, okay, one of our 2 boilers blew up. We don't have the money to replace it. We can't really operate town hall on just one. Looking for a reserve transfer, blah, blah, blah. And theoretically, if the finance committee authorized that, that would show up in your budget revision. Another example is, as I've alluded to, and by state statute, in the months of May and June at the end of the fiscal year, the approval of both the finance committee and the select board, they both have to approve. You can do interdepartmental transfers at the end of the year. Those would be budget revisions. And then lastly is, say we had a special town meeting, we had free cash left, or we wanted to, had an instance of something coming up that it was clear that a budget or a budget account or two was going to be overspent because of something unforeseen. Could also ask at that special town meeting to put, free cash, operating stabilization, or some other, if, partway through the year, we found out that state aid was a lot higher than we anticipated, but if there was extra revenues in that way, you could ask to have that money appropriated, and that would be a budget revision.
Okay, so then just to sate my curiosity, so just to pick an item, there was a $3,500 revision to election registration wages on page.
Yes, that was done at the special town meeting in October as one of the articles.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much.
No, you're welcome. I'm glad you picked on one that I actually knew the answer of off the top of my head.
I'll work a little harder next time then.
Okay. All right, any other public comment?
I want to give a shout out to the water department. I had issues here at my home and I called and they were very good. I called on Sunday, which they're closed, and Monday morning, gentleman called right away and came over and explained my situation. So I was very pleased and I want to compliment them.
Here.
The other thing is the sanding and salting of the roads. I don't know what the schedule is, and I don't want them to not do my road, but it seemed like they did it like 2 or 3 times and there was nothing happening. So I wasn't sure whether they're on a route or what. I mean, is that picky? I don't mean to be.
No, and a lot of what they do is actually pre-treatment. So sometimes they are going by the weather forecast or what it looks like is coming in, and it may look like we're either going to get a little bit of snow or it could be some ice. So they will go out before the event and pre-treat. And sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong. So
okay. That answers that.
All right.
So it's not necessarily a route or timing.
Okay. All right.
Okay. All right. That being said, are there any other questions for Jen or Regina? If not, we can
Just thank you for coming.
thank them for.
Oh, no problem.
attending.
Any questions you
Jen.
have?
Thanks, Regina.
Any questions you have, you can always email me or, call the office anytime. That's fine. So,
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for
You're
attending.
welcome. No problem. Thank you.
Just moving on, can we approve the minutes of the January 11 meeting? May I hear a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor? Mary?
Aye.
Barbara?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
Chair is aye. Next scheduled meeting is for Monday, February 8th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. Any other issues? If not, I'll hear a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Rachel, aye.
Barbara, aye.
Mary, aye, and Chair, aye. We are done. Thank you, folks.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Take care.
Good night.
Aye.